RoH Part 2, Scene 31. Talon pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was dim and dirty. The neon overhead flickered and didn't do near enough of a job to bring light to the corners of the room. The off-green wallpaper was faded and peeling at odd places. There was no furniture, just the stained grey lino floor and a chipped wall heater on the far side. Nalana lay on her back in the middle of the room. One arm was splayed out next to her, and a man in dark clothes sat crouched over her, tying something around her wrist. Talon lifted his weapon. "Get away from her." The man flinched back against a nearby wall. He was obviously Tolan, with dark red-brown skin, shaved black hair, and vivid purple eyes. Small piercing rings looped around both edges of his lips, one nostril and an eyebrow. He looked rough, perhaps another gangster. "What are you doing to her?" Talon demanded. Dark purple eyes widened, and immediately Talon sensed that the Tolan man was not a threat. "Tay," Nalana's voice cracked. "Ma was helping." He dropped to her side. "We've come to get you out. Can you stand?" Her face was so terribly swollen he barely recognized her. Deep brown eyes looked up at him. She radiated agony, and he knew her answer before she spoke. "I don't think so." Talon knew he couldn't carry Nalana for very long with the agony she was in, and he got to his feet with the intention of getting Nathan to help him. The Tolan man in the corner stepped forward uncertainly. "I can help. Please, take me with you." Tay looked down at Nala, then back at the man. "You think you can carry her?" "Yes." The Tolan moved towards her and gently lifted Nala into his arms. She moaned in pain, but didn't fight him. Talon sensed that she wasn't afraid of the young man and turned back towards the door. "Come on, we have to be quick." Outside in the corridor, Nathan was on his knees with a limp, unconscious gangster still in his headlock. Talon stared. "What are you doing?" "He's not dead." Nathan released the man onto the floor. "He's unconscious, but we've only got a few minutes." "Right, fastest way out of here?" "This way." Nathan took point, leading them back into the hall adjacent to the casino floor, and then left through a door marked as staff only. At the door, Talon held it open for the man carrying Nalana, and looked around for any sign of threats, but it seemed clear for the moment. The corridor beyond was narrow and cluttered with boxes and housekeeping trolleys filled with linen. He heard the repetitive throb of dryers and washing machines off to one side, and as he passed a doorway, he saw a snippet of faded green metal and stark white neon lights. At the end of the corridor was a fire exit, which opened out onto the parking lot and street behind the casino. Running past cars and across the one-way delivery lane, they entered an alley between two old stone apartment buildings. Talon mentally reached back across the width of the Ace of Spades casino to the front entrance, where Nama sat in his van waiting for them. "Nama, come get us." He showed Nama where they were in relation to him. His mental voice was tense. "On my way. How is she?" "She's bad, but she's alive." They came out of the alley to the next street over. Tall buildings towered over the narrow road, cutting off most of the morning light and casting jagged shadows on them as they stopped to rest on the sidewalk. "Nama's coming in the van," he panted. Leaning his back against the wall, he looked sideways at the Tolan man. "Ma, was it?" The man crouched on the concrete and rested Nalana on his knee. "Marcus. Okay, Marcus, look, we're Cyrils. You might want to leave us here and—" "I've got no home to go back to," he interrupted. "I can help you. I'm a tech talent, and—" Purple eyes dropped to look at Nalana still in his arms. "I want to stay with her." Talon smiled. "Okay." A white van screeched chaotically around the nearby corner, and had he not been able to sense Nama's flare of green and blue, he would have thought the driver was drunk or mad, or both. The van screamed to a halt immediately in front of them, and the driver's side door opened. "Get in, kids." Scene 32. That evening. Talon sat next to the fire with his back up against the unpainted wall, watching over Nalana as she slept. Pain pulsed around her in a sickling spiral, but he refused to leave her despite the uncomfortable psychic sensations. Wren had pulled the broken bone back into place and strapped her arm to 2 pieces of an old broom handle to keep the bones in place. Unfortunately, the last of the medical plaster had been used up several months ago by a young accident-prone nada, so they had to just make do until they found more plaster to steal. The fire pushed back the shadows and coldness of their new common room with a flickering orange warmth. Flames illuminated the moving shadows of the others as they came and went with their evening chores. Marcus, despite his own injuries, sat on the other side of Nalana, holding her hand in his as she slept. Talon admired his quiet dedication to her. "I got it." Nama's voice arrived in the room before his feet brought him through the doorway. Dangling from his hand was Nalana's necklace on a new metal chain. "Rana swapped it for the last of my bottle of my whiskey." Talon gave his old friend a sad but gentle smile. "Rana's a thief, then?" "I know." Nama looked tense and kind of lost. "But it's the only thing she owns. She deserves to wake up with it. Help me get it on her?" Tay got to his feet. He brushed her hair away from her neck so that Nama could get the chain around. A silver whale leapt up towards the line of metal chain with its back arched. It was lovely and suited her well. She must have bought the pendant in the market because he'd never seen it before. But knowing her, he probably would never have seen it had the leather cord not broken when they moved her from the van. It was odd. She always seemed to keep the truly special things close to her heart and hidden even from them. Nama's grubby fingers fiddled with the clip. If she's got any totem at all, it's whale totem. She's joyous, like they are, and she sings the most beautiful songs. Nodding in agreement, he swallowed back the tight ball of emotion in his throat. "Nama." Talon heard his sister's mental voice, even though he was almost certain he wasn't supposed to. "Yeah, Usher." Nama fastened the clip around Nalana's neck and stood upright. "Did you get confirmation from Hawk about Nathan?" Talon returned to the floor, sat with his back against the wall as he stared into space. He wasn't sure how to block their conversation, or even whether he wanted to if he knew how. His sister sounded tired. "Sort of. He said he can't see a threat, but he can't confirm him either. He said he's probably a time Psi-based Dodge Talon's mucking up the picture." Nama's mental voice growled. "Like that blasted assassin girl?" "Yeah, like Cheetah." There was a sense that she shook her head. "Anyway, he said to keep an eye on him. There's no immediate threat, but we don't involve him in anything important just in case." Asha's voice shifted. "How is Nalana?" Tay sensed a shaft of hot grief slice through his friend. "Wren said she'll be okay. Just in a lot of pain right now. Aside from her arm, there's no serious injuries, but we do need to get some medical-grade plaster." "Sure, I'll see what we can do." There was a deep weariness in Asha's mental voice. "I've sent Nathan downstairs to you. Can you bring our new recruit up?" "Of course." Nama turned to look down at Marcus and broke the physical silence. "The boss wants to see you. Come on. I'll take you upstairs." Marcus nodded and let go of Nalana's hand as he got to his feet. At the doorway, he took a long last look at her, and then Marcus and Nama were gone. Talon was exhausted. It had been a very bad week. He put his head back against the wall and closed his eyes. The weariness pulled him down and away from the room. He fell into a light doze, hovering in and out of an exhausted unconsciousness. Coloured blob people and the patterns of emotions attached to them flitted back and forth around him. Time passed slowly, or perhaps quickly, as he hovered in the empathic buzz of other people's movements. Among the coloured blobs that were the other rebels, an icy grey blob floated into the room and came to a stop next to Nalana's vibrant green and blue. "Nathan?" A pained voice spoke both in Talon's ears and in his head. "Go to sleep, young Nalana. You need to rest." The voice in his ears was gentle and almost loving, but very little emotional colour mirrored it in the grey blob. A pulse of red, itchy pain flared around Nalana. "I can't sleep. It hurts too much. Tell me a story, Nathan." Tension rippled through the grey blue. "I'm not good with stories, Nalana." Please, I can't sleep without one. A sigh met his ears. Okay, just for you, I'll tell you my favourite. 1,000 years ago, at the time of the Reformation, there lived two friends, Mekra and Nera, both priests and both patrons of the new church of the founder. Nera was a gentle and loving soul who believed in absolute compassion and unconditional love. Mekra was a warrior who only understood life through the eyes of war and destruction. He believed that anything that remained of the old gods in the old temple would always threaten to destroy the new church of the founder. With this belief in mind, he started a campaign to hunt down and kill all of the priests of the old temple. Appalled that her friend could be so heartless, Nera tried to save as many of the old temple priests as possible, but eventually Mekra found her. He was so enraged by her betrayal that he killed her. Afterwards, for his loyalty to the new church of the founder, Mekra became high priest. But the guilt for killing his friend Nera ate away at his mind, and eventually Mekra went mad. On the first snowstorm of that winter, he put on his long coat and walked into the storm, hoping that death would take him, and he would finally be free of his guilt. But they say death utterly refused to take him into the afterlife because of the great crime of killing a soul as pure and loving as Nera. Instead, Mekra became death himself, forever cursed to walk within the winter storms, collecting the dead and fighting with his own unending madness. It was quiet for a moment, and Talon sensed a flare of gentle affection shift from the grey blob that was Nathan. Go to sleep, young Nalana. Talon and I will watch over you. Day 6. Heth. Scene 33. Agent Heth Pellin sat at his broad wooden desk with a pen in hand and with papers littered across his desk. He hated desk work, but as project head, it was simply part of the job, and there was a lot of work associated with the search for Hawk. They had a massive network of resources through every echelon of the agency, as well as out in the public, all collecting information and rumour in the hope of finding something, anything, about this strange rebel leader. His office door opened and someone stepped in without even knocking, which was a sign of someone undisciplined or simply disrespectful. He glanced up at the man who stood in his doorway and sighed. Disrespectful, spoiled, and egotistical are more accurate descriptions, he thought. What do you want? He deliberately put some respect in his tone, so he couldn't be accused of hostility, but enough anger to show he was not impressed with such blatant and deliberate disrespect. I hear condolences are in order. Ice blue eyes, like mirror images of the young man's father, shone darkly at him. Heth frowned. What do you mean? Your spy, he's dead. The corner of his mouth lifted mockingly. And you were so patient with him. Heth got to his feet. What? What are you talking about? Oh, you haven't heard? Well, I'm sure your underlings will find him eventually. Meanwhile, the rebels keep causing trouble. Heth suppressed an impatient sigh. What is it you want? Jaran Cody's youngest son got on his nerves far quicker than any of the others of his age and rank. I want Hawk. Heth crossed his arms over his chest. Don't we all? No, I want the prestige of bringing him in myself. So, you need a new spy and I can do that for you. But I want everything you have on Hawk, and I want to be kept in the loop of all other operations. Heth laughed. And what makes you think you're in a position to make such a deal? For one thing, I'm alive. Here. He handed him a scrap of paper with an address scrawled roughly on it. That's where they dumped your spy's body. For another, I'm in with the rebels, with Namari's cell. I've had contact with Hawk's second in command, and I have a source that seems to think that Hawk is an agent and not a rebel. Heth reached across the desk for a notepad. Tell me more. No, that's not how it works. The deal is I give you free-flowing information on the rebels themselves, if you give me free-flowing information about all aspects of the search for Hawk. Heth lifted an eyebrow at the man. Does your father know you're making unreasonable offers? I can go and get his authority if you like, but do you really want him to know you lied about your spy? An XA2, really? Such a fever. Rain Muldoran was barely an A4. He was undisciplined fool. Do you want father to find that out? Heath swallowed, forcing himself to remain calm, lest he appeared weak. He looked down at the scrawled address in his hand. Give me a few days, we'll check this out and I'll collate what information we have on file about Hawk. Come back with some good information that we can pass on to one of the external assassins, and we'll negotiate. For now, I have a great deal of work to do. Heath indicated his office door with one upturned palm. Good day.